Well, let's get started. It is 6:01, and we want to welcome you to a wonderful hour with Dr. Warren Farrell. And I know that every one of you is going to feel blessed when we are completed with this. Janet Harvey will be joining us shortly, and she and Dr. Farrell will be going through Men Can't Hear what women can't hear what men don't say. So I want to give you a very thorough and inspiring introduction of Warren, Dr. Farrell. His books cover 12 disciplines, if you can imagine. A book on couples communication, Women Can't Hear What Men Don't Say, was a Book of the Month club. So as some of you in the chat yesterday were buying books, get ready. His father and child reunion has inspired many dads to be more involved with their children. And his book, Why Men Earned More, the startling truth behind the pay gap and what women can do about it. It was chosen by U.S. News and World Report as one of the top 4 books on careers. Dr. Farrell has been chosen by the Financial Times as one of the world's top 100 thought leaders. His books are published in how many countries? So many countries. And 50. Well, I bet while we've been sitting here, it's more. And in 20 languages. They include the 2 award-winning international bestsellers, Why Women Are the Way They Are, plus The Myth of Male Power.
Actually, why men are the way they are. I wouldn't presume to know why women are the way they are.
Oh, did I say women again? Wow. I guess I've got my own bias is getting busted here, Warren. Warren has taught at the university level in 5 disciplines, appeared on more than 1,000 TV and radio shows, and has been interviewed by some of my favorites, Oprah, Barbara Walters, Peter Jennings, Katie Couric, Larry King, and Charlie Rose. He's been featured repeatedly in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. He interviewed 9 of the Iowa caucus Democratic presidential candidates and was also invited by the current president to the White House on these issues. He chairs the coalition to create a White House Council on Boys and Men and is also working diligently with Biden's campaign on making it a campaign issue. He has 2 daughters, lives with his wife in Mill Valley, California. Welcome, Warren.
Thank you. It's just been a pleasure getting to know you over our phone calls preparing for this. So I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Well, where shall we begin?
Well, I think Janet and I think Janet just chatted you and said that she's on and ready to go.
All right. I think I need to give a code here, a CCE code to our coaches out there. And I'll also put it in the chat along with the link shortly. 625-716. 625-716. And I think what I need to do is go in here and find Janet. There she is. And there we go, promote to panelist. Hey, she's my boss. Could I hold her there indefinitely? I don't think so. And not keep my job anyway. Yes.
No, that's not true.
Well, we do like to have a sense of fun. So yeah. Janet, I gave Warren a big, complete introduction because it's just such a thrill to have him here.
Indeed.
I guess I would like to say, just for anyone who missed yesterday, I met some people in my breakout room that found out about this conference on the Facebook. So they don't know Janet Harvey, and they don't know that you've been working in Fortune 500 companies for 25 years on 6 continents, and your early adoption of bringing the coaching culture into organizations. I would like to say, especially on top of Oscar's opening, as a healing presence. And as we look at performance and connect that to generativity, and that connection with our purpose in the workplace. I think while the description says training, I like to say that you've been busy empowering leaders worldwide. Former president of ICF Global, CEO of Invite Change, and Master Certified Coach, Janet Harvey and Warren, you can take it away.
All right.
Thank you, Sarah. Good morning, Warren.
Good morning, Janet. It's so good to see you. I've just totally enjoyed our conversations preparing for this, Janet.
Me too, me too.
Do you want to kick us off, Janet?
I was thinking over the evening, particularly in light of yesterday's Racial Equity Forum in the afternoon, and even more importantly, the Loving Schoolroom case study that we had earlier in the morning, which is teaching really interpersonal skills, a lot of what you and I are going to be exploring here this morning. And to Lonnie Mukuba, who is teaching this curricula in South Africa, the numbers, Warren, would have just astounded you. Bullying has dropped from 76% to 12%. They've reduced violence in the classroom. They've reduced addiction. And there was like a list of 15 different measures that they did pre and post this curricula. And the children's videos, the case study videos that they were sharing were so heartwarming. I just know in my bones that generationally is where we're going to resolve this entrenched difference that we continue to navigate and oppression from it.
Yeah.
So, you know, your work is so bloody important. You have no idea. And, you know, if you could get us baby boomers to stay awake and learn something different, rock on. I'm just delighted we're here together.
Well, thank you. I guess one of the things that's really happened for me is seeing that, you know, here I was studying the boy crisis for 14 years, researching it and writing it. And you know, when I started out, I submitted to my publisher that, you know, the proposal, I had 10 causes of the boy crisis. And so, and then I started looking at each of the causes and seeing that by far and away, the most important cause was dad deprivation. And so I started looking at dad deprivation more carefully and realized that, well, I could really work on helping the country or the world understand the importance of dads, and that would be very helpful. But the importance of dads often came up in two instances, or dad deprivation came up in two instances. One was after divorce, when oftentimes the dads were not treated fairly in court and lost the ability to be involved with their children. And that is, you know, that's a legal crime to begin with. But I was saying to myself, you know, why are they getting divorced to begin with? And so if I could prevent the divorce without legally preventing, because you want to give people freedom to be able to divorce if they feel they need to, but behind divorce almost always was the inability, was people getting into arguments. And so I looked at what were those arguments about? And it was almost always the inability to handle personal criticism without becoming defensive. And so I started looking at what's the background of that. And the background of that was that people were, historically speaking, if you heard criticism, it could be an enemy. And so it was functional to become defensive so the enemy didn't kill you. Or alternatively, it was functional to kill the enemy before the enemy killed you. And that was wonderful for survival. It was just terrible for love. Because when your partner had a concern, if you were defensive, then your partner knew she or he was going to take a significant risk in bringing up that concern. And the concern had to be really important to risk having it all, you know, escalate into a major conflict. And so you kept the risks to yourself and drank instead, or, you know, went out and got addicted to something, another woman, another, you know, a job, a church, something that made you look good, but you really were escaping intimacy all the time. And so I said, this is not the way to prevent divorce. And so I started saying, well, if being defensive in response to personal criticism from somebody we love is biologically natural, then what am I going to do about it? And the closest thing that had come out was active listening. And active listening was very good and a big jump forward psychologically over blaming your partner. However, it was never done almost never done outside of the comfort and the security provided by a therapist. And so I'm thinking then, well, that means it's basically not available to the great majority of people who can't afford therapists. So, and also, when you're being attacked by your partner or criticized by your partner, you can't pull a therapist in magically. That's when the water is hot, so to speak, and that's when you're burning and you're responding defensively. When you're in a therapist's office, that's retrospective. That the water is not hot anymore; it's lukewarm, and so you can talk about it rationally. And I wanted to have something available for people at the moment, that the second of anger, when they were most wanting to get back to their partner, that they could do to have an alternative to that. And so I worked for years on trying to figure out what that was. And then for the past 30 years, I've worked with these couples communication courses and always done follow-up phone calls with them. I don't believe in doing workshops without follow-up phone calls from the people in the workshop, because so many couples communication workshops are basically, it's a honeymoon while you're in the workshop, and you promise yourselves that you're going to do all these new things. And then you go back and, you get involved in your everyday life, your children, et cetera, and you forget about all those, those things to do. And so, I call the workshop Role Mate to Soulmate, and the subtitle, The Art and Discipline of Love. And the discipline is very important, because basically it's biologically natural to fall in love, but it's biologically unnatural to do the things that it takes to sustain love. And so that was what I started to, that got me inspired to connect the solution to the boy crisis, not only to dad involvement, but also to developing communication skills in first, second, third grade, and also for every parent before they have a child. You can get along on a vacation pretty well, and you can even get along together if you don't have children. But you start having children, and the complexities that happen, and the different styles of dad-style parenting versus mom-style parenting. No one knows about dad-style parenting and what it contributes. No dad says to the mom, I want a rough house with the children. Not only is it fun, but it also increases the children's empathy. Like, what? Roughhousing increases empathy? Like, that's so counterintuitive, but yet the data is there for that. So moms can't hear what dads don't say, and dads can't say what they don't read in magazines, none of which explain what the value of dad style of parenting is. And so everyone's left feeling that, moms are left feeling that, that when the dad is roughhousing, it's just sort of like, I feel I just have one more child to monitor, not an actual, partner here. And the mom is sort of wanting to sort of, please stay, when you stop the roughhousing, somebody's going to get hurt sooner or later, but the mom doesn't want to be controlling, and she sees the kids are having fun, but then sooner or later, it's only about a 99% chance that she's likely to be right, that somebody won't get hurt. And then she says, okay, at least dad is, will learn now to stop the roughhousing, but she's also feeling guilty that she didn't stop it herself when she intuitively knew that this was the end of getting hurt.
Right, this cycle.
The cycle happens, exactly. And mom feels as understood as a rock, and dad feels misunderstood and blamed, and like, why should I get involved in the whole parenting process to begin with? I might as well go out and earn money. At least when I bring in a big paycheck, she's appreciative of it. And so, and then everyone's left sort of like holding this angst inside of themselves.
Right.
So that's just a little bit of the connection between the boy crisis and the communications.
What an extraordinary ability to pull that thread all the way through, Warren, right? And your whole body of work leading to what sounds like a very simple concept, active listening, but isn't. I mean, I know that as a professional coach all these years, that how we experience another person's expression is the roots of the ability to open them to more of their potential.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about.
And active listening was very good for the person who wanted to be understood. So if you and I are brother and sister, and I'm sort of, criticizing you as always wrapping yourself, or, wrapping daddy.
Yes, I have 3 older brothers. Thank you very much.
All right.
I know this one.
and you're saying, you're the white male that has all the privilege, and dad always wanted to have you go to the best college, and he didn't put as much money and effort into me, and you're back and forth, both of you feeling unloved. Well, the active listening was very good for helping the person who was talking to feel heard. The problem is we have biologically natural propensities to be defensive, and the person who was listening to the criticism not only could not be defensive like it was biologically natural for him or her to do, but also had to repeat the criticism she or he was hearing without that defensiveness. And so something had to be able, so the problem was having the person feel defensive when the other person was criticizing. And so the job that I had to do was to get the person listening to the criticism to not only not feel defensive, but to know that the love, that by providing a safe environment for their partner's feelings, that was a love guarantee. The ability of them the partner to feel heard would make the partner feel more loved, and the partner feeling more loved would mean the partner would end up loving you more. But you can't do that naturally when you're being criticized. So I developed a conflict-free zone for 166 hours a week. And then just one time during the week, you set aside what I call a caring and sharing time.
Mm-hmm.
And before you hear the criticism, you yourself, without a counselor, just meditate into an altered state, because if it's biologically natural to be defensive, you have to alter that biologically natural propensity into an altered state of 6 mindsets like that love guarantee that allows you, before you hear your partner's criticism or any criticism from the person you love.
Can you stop for a second, Warren? I know you're on a roll, but they're having a hard time hearing you. So I'm wondering if you have a way to turn up the volume on your microphone.
Yes, and the reason they're having a hard time hearing me is I left my microphone back there. Tell me if that's better, and that's much better.
I think that's much better. Let's see. Somebody chat for us and tell us if Warren's volume is a little better.
Yeah, I wanted to tell you that was 100% my mistake. I will accept that criticism and change my behavior.
Yes, everybody says much better. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Duh. That's what happens when you get up at 4:45 in the morning.
I gotcha.
So,
okay.
So basically, don't worry. I said absolutely nothing in the last 15 minutes.
Actually, I want to tease something apart a little bit, because this is for the rest of the audience to know that Warren and I have many hours of this conversation and more to come, I am sure. Active listening, as it was taught when I was growing up, was very much what you were just describing, that we paraphrased and mirrored. And so if you were receiving criticism, you were hearing it and traumatizing yourself a second time by saying it out loud.
Yes.
And that mirroring and paraphrasing. In psychotherapy, they call it catchball. And it's like, seriously, there's got to be a better way. And that's what I love about the coaching paradigm, is that it's not reliant on that. That the safety in the partnering that allows for meaning to be received, and that the reflection back is, I understand, I'm noticing, I'm aware of now, I'm appreciating seeing this from your point of view, right? It's a different conversational paradigm, and I suspect we're going to get a chance here to see how you're doing this in a couples workshop. I love this phrase, role mate to soulmate. Right? And I think it is in the communication expression itself. And so I'm feeling a lot of alignment with what you're saying.
Thank you. Yes. Tell me, what inspired when people, when I do my work and people paraphrase it, oftentimes I crawl under the table out of embarrassment from like, no, that's not what I'm doing. And so when you do your work, what do you try to communicate that often is not heard by people, that inspire and invite change?
What a lovely question. I learned very early on in my life that circumstances were not my identity or my reality or who I was. They were just circumstances. And that if I didn't like what was going on, I had choice. I could change internally. I might not be able to leave the situation itself, but I personally could change the way I was relating to it. This is long before I had that vocabulary as a coach.
Mhm.
And some of that for me, I think, is growing up with a birthmark on my face. I've always been different, no matter what room I walked into. And I get the discrimination. I understand that being dismissed and not seen. So I learned how to invite the change I wanted in my life. And I've always been a change optimist as a result, which is very frustrating to people around me because they're like, hang on, I can't change quite that fast.
Mhm.
But I think somewhere in that journey for me, I realized that it was up to me to learn to listen more deeply into what someone's meaning is.
Mhm.
And as a result, I can be a choice. I slow myself down, I make myself available, I begin to recognize, does this match up at all with my value system? Is this complementary? Will this enliven me in some way? And if the answer is no, I'll say very graciously thank you and go about my way. And that's what I mean, not being a victim to one's life circumstances, but stepping into choice,
Yeah.
being self-ruling or sovereign, as I often refer to it.
So, do the birthmark experience, how did you turn that around? From many people would have walked out of that with the excuse to be a victim. You have walked out of that not only with not with taking the excuse to be a victim, but the seizing the opportunity to turn that around, not eliminating the surface, but going beneath the surface and saying, I'm going to go deeper here. So tell us about that transition for you.
You know, I don't, I appreciate the question very much, and we'll just see what bubbles to the surface because I don't actually think I've thought about it very much. My parents held the point of view that I would be one and the same, and pretty much co-opted my brothers into the same vocabulary and way of relating, and that worked until I went to kindergarten. And the first day of kindergarten, I was called half Indian.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea what they were talking about, right? Little kids will say the darndest things and not meaning to be mean, but of course in the polite society comes across that way. And I watched the teacher say, no, don't say that. And they started to kind of coddle me a little bit. I was like, oh, this doesn't make any sense. And I came home and said, this doesn't make any sense. Why are they saying this? So my mother explains it to me. It still didn't make any sense to me. And I just said, well, I'm me and I'm not, there's nothing I can do about it. So what if I was funny? What if I was, if I performed well? What if I could express myself? And I channeled a lot of the energy into sports. I was a competitive swimmer and a skater, and I just lived my joy. And if people didn't want to be with me, well, that was their choice. And over time, people would say to me, I don't even see your birthmark until I see somebody else cringe because they don't know you.
Yes, yes.
So that early seed was really about people could see the real me because I was allowing myself to be expressive.
Yes.
Now, was it the real me? Not until much later in life did I learn how to drop my own shields of protection when there were adults who were just downright intrusive. I had somebody actually tug on my shirt and take me over to a makeup counter once to see if I could have some cover up put on it because she was uncomfortable looking at me. Like, what's that about? So, you know, I think my life experiences kept pushing me to authenticity, and maybe that's why I became a coach. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never thought about it that way.
Well, I mean, we all sort of seek ways of being seen and sort of and standing out, and yet the fact that you chose to move through that to the other side is usually the type of thing that you learn after years of therapy and don't pick up in the first or second grade like you did.
Yeah.
And so there was something about the maturity of your parents and you know, your whole family operation and the, you know, probably the inherent maturity of you that led you to choose not the victim route, but the you know, be on top of this route and allow people to discover the you inside of you, and so that the outside is not seen nearly as much. And that, you know,
Exactly.
almost everybody that deals with anything is finds that that is, you know, true. It's, you know, one of the reasons why we can sometimes make love with somebody we really love that may not look exactly like we would like them to look. They're shorter than the man you fantasize, etc. But yet you find that the love you have for him or her, once you feel understood by them and honored by them, can really surpass the external. It's,
Yeah, that phrase, being understood by,
mhm.
you know, it's the courage to see and be seen.
Yes,
Both are
yes,
so important.
yes.
And I think that I think there's just so many external messages. I remember I I moved from the Midwest, St. Louis, Missouri is where
Mhm,
I grew up, and I moved to Southern California.
mhm,
And I remember going to I pretty much didn't need to go to my last year of high school. I had to take California history or something.
mhm.
So I had my jeans and a t-shirt on and I went to school the first day and I'm looking at these girls. And they in those days it was the Farrah Fawcett hair.
Mhm, mhm.
And they are dressed like they're going to a party.
Yes.
Heels and jewelry and makeup and I never felt so out of place ever.
Mhm, mhm,
It was so startling to me how image based it was.
yeah,
And I mean, I looked neat and tidy, but certainly not dressed to go to a party.
mhm.
And I remember that moment, it's like it's seared into my brain. And I realized, like, wow, that's just not what I'm motivated by at
Yes,
all.
yes, yes.
And what difficulty and struggle they went through, the drama at the lunch table. I was
Mhm,
like, no, I'm not doing that in my life. And I could feel the empathy start to come up then and realize that they were covering something for themselves that felt like inadequacy.
absolutely.
And I suspect that's part of what creates that problem.
It's absolutely, and I think that sometimes well, I'll give an example rather than a theory. Um, I for years, all around the world, I I did role reversal experiences, and I would go into audiences, and I was on the board of directors of the National Organization for Women in New York City, and so I was sort of
Oh,
speaking all
wow.
around the world on women's issues, and I would say to the men in the audience, if you really want to understand, get a quick glimpse that you can do in a, you know, short period of time, of what of the female life experience, I said every woman is in a beauty contest every day of her life, and whether she is ugly or beautiful, she's still in that beauty contest. She's just not as much the winner in that beauty contest.
Right.
And so I said, if you want to experience that, come up on stage, or, you know, and I filled that, you know, took some 500 people off of men up on the stage or in the aisles, and I had all the women be judges. And the women's job was to choose the men that they felt were the best looking to them. And then we would do sort of moral virtue questions and talent for the finalists. And so the guys at the end of that process would say, I had this weird experience. This entire time I was competing to be the best looking. And when I got into the finalists, I was angry at the women for seeing nothing but my looks that I was competing to show them. So it's like, and so I'm feeling this sort of appreciation, anger mixture.
Oh
And
my
so,
God, it's
and
so
the women would say, "Thank you,
thank
Warren.
you.
You get that you had them walk a mile in our moccasins, even if only for a short period of time." And conversely, that I said, there's, or, you know, instead of the women that were now super applauding, I was said to them, this is not a free ride here. This is a role reversal experience. So I want you to sit in the audience according to how much money you believe you will be making 5 years after graduation, or if you're already graduated, how much money you're making now. And
Yes.
so the women in the first rows were earning the most, and the women, or what projected to earn the most, the women in the back rows were earning the least. And so then I said, your job now is to come forward and to ask the man you are really the most almost addicted to, good looks wise, probably one of the finalists, or maybe the winner of the beauty contest, and to go up, not to go up to your 10th choice, who you think will not reject you, but go up to your first choice, who you fear will reject you. And so the women just were shaking now.
Oh, I bet.
And I said to the men, when you're looking out into that audience, do not project to yourself, who is the woman you think is the most beautiful out there, but think of the women in the first rows who will do the best job to take care of your children and to have you move into a neighborhood that has the best schools and so on, so in case yes, you may be working full time now, but suppose the children have emotional problems or other types of problems and you need to take off, you're going to need this security blanket economically to be able to take care of your children so that as effectively as you can. So do that role reversal. And
Wow.
so the guys were going,
I
well,
need
I
to
really,
plug in my computer. Keep talking. Keep
oh,
talking.
sure. I really, this is the story of my life. When I speak, somebody just walks away. So
Really, don't take it personally.
I wouldn't take it personally. So I said to the guys, to the women rather, that your job is to do that competition. I said to the guys, you're probably looking out in the audience without realizing that the people in the front row are the ones you really need to focus on, because they're going to give your children the economic security that they need so that you can be either with the children full time or with your work full time, or do some combination of both as your children need. And so now they're saying, well, no, I'm really attracted to that woman in the back row there. She's going to, and nope, you cannot look at that woman in the back row. They are the losers, just like you, the guys that didn't win the beauty contest are the losers. And so, the women in the back rows are meanwhile going, wait a minute, this is really biasing me. How much of a choice do I have of getting accepted? So, but I encourage the women in the back rows to just work all that much harder to compensate for those, for being in the back row and not earning so much money, to come forward really quickly and to ask the man of their choice out. Well, the women came up to ask the man of their choices out. And most of the women I could eventually persuade to try to go for their first or second choice. Well, after processing that with the women said, until this day, whenever I have used the word jerk, that word, I have to admit, applied to a man. But today, I was the jerk. I went up to the guy who was my first choice, but there were 7 or 8 other women up there. And they were all telling them how wonderful they were. And so I started saying, well, I have a portion. I can take you to this best restaurant. I didn't even remember what the name of the best restaurant in town was, because I had never been there, but my parents had mentioned it. And so I came up with this name that I thought was the best restaurant and said I could pick them up in the Porsche. And when they started still paying attention to somebody else, I actually grabbed the man's hand to pull him away from the rest of the women in the group. Now, if a man did that to me, I would really consider that obnoxious or sexual harassment or something along those lines. But today I was the woman doing that, and I did that because I was so insecure. I needed to get him away, and I didn't want to be able to have to handle the rejection of him choosing the other woman over me. And besides, I really thought I had something to offer him, but I couldn't say it from the emotional stuff when 6 other people were talking. So I had to pull him away. And so for the first time in my life, I understood why men become jerks, because we put all this emphasis on they have to be the ones to risk rejection, in order to do that. And so this was sort of like a way of getting both sexes to walk a mile in each other's moccasins.
Wow. So we've socialized that the masculine partner, because this would also be true, I'm guessing. I don't know what you've done in homosexual relationships, but I would imagine that the masculine social identity, I'm making gross generalization here, but just to make this point, that there's pressure to perform in some way, and they must risk rejection. That was the phrase you used. It's like, wow, that's an epigenetic